Walt Whitman opens his 1855 poem Song of Myself in this way: I celebrate myself, and what I assume you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. I loaf and invite my soul. I lean and loaf at my ease, observing a spear of summer grass. So here is the first time in the 1855 Song of Myself uh, that Whitman mentions grass, which will become a primary image throughout the entire poem. And I'll talk about how grass as image works in Song of Myself, 1855, in just a moment. But I would like to pause here to note that Whitman used grass as the primary image for defining his overall poetic career. The book he published in 1855, of which Song of Myself is a part, is called Leaves of Grass. And until his death, he expanded and revised this same book 6 times, 6 editions. Leaves of Grass goes through the last coming 1891/1892, thereabouts. Whitman first came across this idea of grass as a symbol for life in general, probably from the sermons of the great Puritan minister Elias Hicks, who Whitman saw as a very young boy living in Brooklyn. His father was a huge follower of Elias Hicks. And Hicks, in one of his sermons, famously said that we can behold God in a blade of grass. The Godhead exists everywhere, including a blade of grass. The idea being for Hicks that no matter where you look, there is God. You can certainly imagine God in the heavens. You can certainly imagine God in the clouds, the sun, in a grand vision, say, of a mountain vista or a waterfall. But grass, lowly grass, God is everywhere. So Whitman latched upon this idea, but from a more secular point of view. So for the first 5 sections of Song of Myself, Whitman basically presents himself, his poetic eye, to give a sense to readers of who he is. He opens up by celebrating an I. As I've noticed, this is ironic since the 1855 edition offers no author, so we don't know who this I is that is being celebrated. There's an irony there, this aggrandizement of an I, but also an undercutting of an I, because we can't even attach the I to a particular person. So the first 5 books, Whitman says things like, I like perfume. I like perfume bottles on the shelves, but I most like the regular air, unscented. I'm mad for it. I inhale it vehemently. I want to become undisguised and naked on the bank of the river. I'm mad for contact. So there's this speaker who just wants immediate experience of the natural world, even to the point of stripping off naked. This speaker also tells us that he is divided, that there's one part of him that participates in the push and pull of everyday life, who has loves, who has despairs, who pays bills, who votes. But this part of himself, he says, is not me, myself, suggesting that there's a part of him that is watching what he is doing, that there is a part of his eye that is in the game, participating, and there's another part of him that is out of the game, watching. And it appears that this twofold nature of the self is connected to the idea that his self is made of both body and soul. Body being participatory, soul being able to stand outside of the participation and look to the future and look to potential. This poet also says that in my book, this poem, I will not give you reality at secondhand. I will not give reality as appears in books. I will give you reality itself, Of course, this is an irony because this idea is coming in the form of a book. This I also says that I enjoy time with God. He comes to me as a bedfellow at night and has a sleepover with me. And when we wake, there are huge bulging bread baskets. So there's something highly erotic about this I. And he makes no distinction between spirituality and eroticism. God is his lover, not some distant principle in the sky that he worships. So these are just some images that we see of this multifaceted I, which appears in these first 5 books less as a stable thing and more as a kind of field of energy that is just as likely to spread and distribute and flow as it is to stay put and be discreet and be solid. Well, at the end of these first 5 sections, suddenly one of the most bracing transitions in all of literature, I would say, at the end of these first 5 books, suddenly the poet says, "And a child comes to me, and he says, 'What is the grass?'" So we can imagine this child coming to this speaker with the grass in his hand and holding the grass up. I mean, what is this? What is this grass? And he says, I don't know what it is any more than you do. But then he starts speculating on what the grass might be. He says, well, maybe it's the flag of my disposition out of hopeful green stuff woven. So here's a suggestion that he is grass. That grass is a kind of sign of who he is. Grass symbolizes hope. Yes, it's life, it's organicity. Grass symbolizes weave, the idea that all the roots of the grass are woven together, that the world itself is kind of a weave of greenery. So if that's the case, who is this poet? Well, he is vibrant, he is alive, he is organic, he is part of the woof and warp of existence. So grass grounds him quite literally. He is of the grass. He is of this earth. He is not like, say, Emerson, who is just as interested in the oversoul as he is in, say, a lake. He is not really like Thoreau, who, though very keen on understanding in a visceral way Walden Pond, is also very interested in seeing Walden Pond as a symbol of God, of spirit. But not this poet. He says, grass is the flag of my disposition. It manifests who I am. And I'm out of hopeful green stuff woven. Then he thinks, well, no, maybe it's not that. Maybe it's the handkerchief of the Lord. So here's a sense of the Elias Hicks idea that grass, seemingly lowly, seemingly the most ordinary vegetation you can imagine, grass which will grow anywhere, grass which we walk over all the time, grass which we totally take for granted. Grass itself is God, but not only that, God in a very familiar way. The idea that God carries a handkerchief. It makes God seem very everyday, just like a person. So this is one of Whitman's first, what we might call, radical democratizations of God. The idea that God is not some other up there in the heavens again, but that God is down here with us, on the same footing with us. And then the poet says, well, no, maybe it's not that. Maybe grass is not the handkerchief of the Lord. Maybe it's the produced babe of vegetation. So grass is on the side of innocence, infant. It's on the side of potential. It's on the side of possibility. And it also suggests that, again, we are all no different than grass. We are basically grass up and walking around. That grass is the basic stuff of which we are made. We are not made from sky. We are not made from stars. We are not made from the heavens. We are made from this lowly, common vegetation, grass. And when we realize this, we feel young again. We feel full of possibility again. We feel innocent again. But then the poet says, well, maybe it's not that either. Maybe it's the uniform hieroglyphic that sprouts everywhere in broad zones, in narrow zones, in the east, in the west, in the north, in the south, among black people, among white people. So grass here, it's a symbolic image like a hieroglyph. Hieroglyphs, we have to remember, had only been deciphered rather recently in 1855. In 1819, Jean-Francois Champollion, the great French linguist, had studied the Rosetta Stone and had discovered the meaning of the Egyptian hieroglyphs for the first time. In the then modern world, people understood the meaning of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Whitman was fascinated by ancient Egypt. He went constantly to a museum in Brooklyn, Dr. Abbott's Egyptian Museum, and he looking at the mummies and the cartouches and the tombs and the hieroglyphs. So there's a sense here again that he's bringing together high and low, the grandeur of ancient Egypt and ordinary grass right here, the high and the low, the past and the present. That all comes together when Whitman likens grass to a hieroglyph. But also, more importantly, grass becomes, again, another way of symbolizing democracy. It does not judge. It does not create hierarchy. It does not emphasize difference. Grass grows everywhere, just as democracy should thrive everywhere. Black people should have just as many rights as white people, Whitman believed. People in the north, people in the south, people in the east, people in the west, all the different people in America. Well, they live places where grass grows. So grass is an equalizer. It creates a kind of homogeneity among the variety. So, is that what the grass is? Well, maybe not. Whitman's poet proposes yet a fifth idea. Oh, no. I now think sometimes that grass is the beautiful uncut hair of graves. What does this mean? That grass, yes, it is hopeful green stuff that weaves. Yes, it suggests the living presence of God. Yes, it suggests the innocence of a baby. Yes, it suggests the possibility that we can all be equal. But also grass brings together not only living things, but living things and dead things. Whitman was very keen on the idea that when we die, our bodies decompose and fertilize the earth, that we become literally grass, that our atoms become distributed throughout the earth, and that we become organic vegetation, we become grass. So grass doesn't only unify people above ground, it unifies people below ground with the above ground. So what we realize, these three suggestions, and the poet doesn't say one is right and one is wrong. Basically, the suggestion is that all five of these initial interpretations of what the grass is in reply to the child's question, each of these is valid, and that somehow they work together. And what do they work together to tell us? Well, we have to remember that grass, like the word sheep, say, is singular and plural at the same time. A blade of grass, one. We have a field of grass, many. So grass is both singular and plural, individual and collective at the same time. This inspires Whitman, and this is a primary impetus behind his idea of grass as somehow bringing together individual and collective, one and many. All those ideas are implied in the five answers that the poet gives to the child. So initially it seems that Whitman's interested in the grass for political reasons. It's a symbol of democracy, yes. But then we realize too that grass is also a symbol of, let's call it Whitman's proto-ecology. That word ecology was not in the language of Whitman's time, but Whitman wanted to say that we should not see the natural world in a hierarchical kind of way. We should not see the cosmos as the manifestation of a great chain of being. We shouldn't imagine that there are angels up in heaven, and then there are humans, and then there are animals that are like humans, say, like chimpanzees, all the way down to the animals that are least like humans, say fleas and cockroaches. Um, Whitman says that all beings are equal. So anthropocentrism doesn't work for Whitman. There's no sense that humans are intrinsically better than non-humans, but all beings are the same. And the grass growing everywhere, and the grass also being ordinary and underfoot, but at the same time, a manifestation of universal vitality. Grass is a way of saying that all beings, even those as lowly as a blade of grass, are equal, that the grass is just as important as a human's brain, that is just as important as a star. So this decentering of this idea that the humans are the center of the universe would be another idea. So political, ecological, these are the primary arenas, we might say, intellectual arenas, the political and ecological, where grass signifies most for Whitman. But what happens is, in the poem, and this is the last thing I'll say, is that if Whitman is grass, figuratively speaking, and if everyone else is grass, figuratively speaking, that means that all the different episodes that Whitman witnesses throughout this poem, and sometimes these episodes get rendered in these massive catalogs that go on for 3, 4, 5 pages. There's a sense that everything in the poem is somehow a blade of grass that makes up the overall poem, which is a field of grass. Now, why does Whitman call his book Leaves of Grass and not simply Blades of Grass? Well, if you think about it, a blade of grass does look kind of like a leaf, but a leaf, of course, doesn't only suggest tree, which brings together high and low, blade of grass, leaf of a tree, but also points to the fact that what is a book made of? Leaves. So the pages of Whitman's book are like blades of grass, and what makes up these pages? Also grass, and the whole book kind of a field of grass. So that alters the way we see his book. We begin to see his book not just as pages and words, but as a living thing, an organic being. And his words will hit us like, say, things might hit us. So the idea that the book is grass collapses the distinction between words and things and invests the book with a palpability, a viscerality, a tactility that Whitman himself very much wanted. As he said later in his career, whoso touches this book touches a man.